You've talked a lot about how flexible and how customizable concrete can be in its application. This
Right.
must mean that you must be doing a lot of R&D to make sure that you keep improving.
Oh, absolutely.
So, how does the R&D process work for you?
Uh, so, there are two types of R&D. One is a very project specific R&D. So, for example, if I've discussed with an architect and he wants me to do something, and most often because the work is customized, you find that each requirement is different from the previous one, right? So there will be some very specific R&D that I need to do to make sure that what he's asking for is feasible, and also what exactly it involves from a commercial point of view to do what he is asking for, right? Because it is difficult to quote for something that you have never done before, and so you need to do some sort of trials and very project specific R&D. Then there is the other kind of R&D where it is, like for preference. So, for example, when an architect says he wants gray, right? Now, gray means many different things to many different architects. So there is a level of very basic R&D where you're trying to create different shades for him, create a color palette for him. I mean, all of that is R&D in a sense. But beyond a specific project, where there is no architect involved, where you are just thinking in your own head, saying, it would be interesting if we could do this, or it would be interesting if we could do that, or what happens if I substitute A with B or C with D, will I be able to do this? There is that kind of R&D, which also happens, I think, I would say that happens all the time actually. We're always looking at new stuff, reading new stuff, seeing what we can do with it.
So, so Eurocon started off as a purely product-based company. You mentioned, right? So now,
Correct.
what's the range? Like, how much have you expanded? You can just touch on that briefly.
Sure. So the thing with Eurocon was that when they started, I think the excitement at that time was that you had a material that you could cast, right? And so my father and uncle, they explored that to the maximum, in the sense they looked at making tiles of different shapes. The tiles didn't have to be squares and rectangles. They looked at different colors, they looked at different textures, they looked at different applications for tiles. So they had floor tiles, they had wall tiles, they had a tile for the step with the nosing. They actually had a tile for skirting as well, and so you had floor, you had wall, you had step tiles in Eurocon. With Facilini, actually, we've done lots of other stuff. We've said that rather than just tiles, we've looked at facades, so large panels for the elevation of a building. We've looked at perforated screens. Then we've also created sort of building blocks that you can just stack up to create a wall or to create a screen as well. We've also created some very, very specific, specialized, high-end tiling products with new age concrete as well. We've done planter boxes. We've done furniture. I mean,
That's the one that excites me the most. The
right.
furniture.
So it's possible to do all kinds of things with it, and we're kind of even as we speak right now, we're thinking about creating a kind of integrated tread and riser kind of step slab right now. We've actually created balcony walls itself. So we're not cladding onto anything. We're actually creating the wall itself with our material. We've done a project where we've created tread slabs. I mean, not the tile for the tread, but the tread slabs itself for a staircase, for a very, very light, slim staircase. And then we've done pergolas. Like I said, we've
So
done
that's
all
a
of this.
huge transformation of services and products.
It is, but I don't want to give you the impression that I sat with a pen and paper and listed out all these things. That's not at all how it happened. You go to a creative architect and say that this is the material I have, and he himself will say, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And then you do your sort of R&D and get back to him and say, yeah, we can. So many of these applications were driven by ideas that architects had, ideas that designers had.
Right. So it grew organically.
Absolutely. The process is 100% organic. It is not like I sat down and said, I can do all of this. That's absolutely not. What I sat down and did was, I want my material to be able to do A, B, C, D, E. And then you go to the architect and say, I've got a material that can do A, B, C, D, E. And then he will start thinking. And then you feed off of that and you develop expertise that way.